Yo, it's X. We here with Peter. We here with Corey. We chopping it up. We gonna keep chopping it up with Peter. How you doing, brother?
Yo,
I can agree.
I got you. I got you. Yeah.
universal, yo. Anybody can see that. Who can
So,
see?
number one, if you want to give everybody an update, what's going on with you right now? Just in terms of the school, some
Yeah.
people, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Some people don't know the update on it. So, if you want to
All
give
right.
the people an update real quick.
All right. So we were talking about in some of our previous joints about a schoolhouse, and we went through with that. And long story short, there's security concerns, and we were getting love from the hood. Kinfolk were coming through, and like, yo, we was making plans for the summer. But then some things happen, and the way we roll, we don't call the popo when things go down. Love and peace to the popo, but we don't call them. And so because of that, we have to be very proactive and very confident about what we do, and particularly what we invite kinfolk to, particularly children, women in our village, elders. Yo, if things is static and everything, you can't invite the blessed of our community to that kind of circumstance. So because of that, we have to be proactive. And because there were some security concerns with some things that happened, nothing serious. It's very innocuous, but still, even that just like oop, oop, don't. That's it. So, anyways, that's the long story short. And we still continue. We still have some things progressing, but at the moment, in terms of like full throttle, we've had to like put it on hiatus. And so the material's still there, the schoolhouse is still there. Kinfolk are very welcome to pick up the reins and continue on with it. But just in terms of our official kind of like sanctioning or whatever else of the joint, it's on hiatus. So meanwhile, we still got to do this walk, and that's actually one of the things that we're going to get into later on. But at this point, we're focusing on what we refer to as world roots and livity. So roots is like, again, coming from the mixed experience. Kinfolk are have this like this. One of the beautiful things about being mixed is like being open to different cultures and communication and building. And additionally, but at the same time, one of the challenges is having a rootedness and stability and support to continue enduringly do that. Like when the Gospels of Jesus talks about the seeds along the path, and when the seeds abstain from having that rootedness, the seeds are very susceptible to getting enveloped in the conditions around us. So that's one of the things we look at in terms of this walk is giving sharing with kinfolk who are mixed color and anybody from any culture, because the whole nature of assimilation within international kind of system requires everybody, white, black, brown, yellow, red, whatever, to kind of lose that sense of self and immerse within how the system values people through labor and additionally. And so we work towards giving sharing with people that rootedness, sharing the old stories, sharing the old songs where people come from, and encouraging people to like look in and respect and connect with that relationship with family, with ancestors. So that's the rootedness. And then the liberty is just like doing it in a non-judgmental way. Ziggy Marley has a thing of like, he says he doesn't condemn and he doesn't convert. That's not what it's about. It's just about like sharing the light. For kinfolk who are ready for it, yo, here it is, beauty. And for cats who don't want it, yo, it's all right. That will catch you on the flip side or whatever else. And that's not like some innuendo. That it's like legit like love. So it's a liberty. It's like a way of being. It's like it's Irie, that whole Jamaican Rastafarian kind of like, yo, everything Irie. So it's that liberty of with everybody, whoever they is, whatever ethnicity, race, socioeconomic status. It's that liberty of just like, yo, we got the spot. Let's chop it up. Let's talk respect. Let's respect each other. But yo, we can build bridges here. So that's where we're on at the moment. World roots and liberty, and then sharing that. I've got a book joint, and this is not like I'm supposed to be giving spiels a plug or whatever, but I'm in the completing stages of a book, and we're working on like a kind of like book tour, like going from like campus to campus, staying in a spot for a few months or whatever, chopping it up with Kim folks, sharing it, and additionally, but maybe we can talk about that further later. But that's where things are at the moment. Short story long.
So yeah, and I want to anybody that's viewing this and anybody who's seen any of our interviews and talked with Peter, feel free to approach him. Feel free to talk to him. If you need to come through us, if you need to comment, we'll give you info to get in touch with Peter to share your ideas. Be a part of the community. Be active. That's basically all I want to really say on that end. Corey, you got anything?
Well, I got a small question. I was just curious, how big are your groups in person usually? Like, what's the size looking like?
My groups.
Yeah, like you're talking about your class and all that. How many
Ah,
people are showing up for that?
okay. All right. So it's a very legit question. It's a very beautiful question, and I see the source, the intentionality within that question. So I know it's honesty and it's genuine. Now that being said, I have to share this. Whenever Kifo asks me about like, so who's with you? How many people you got? The first thing I think about is patty roller. So do you know what a patty roller is?
I do not. You're gonna have to
Do
enlighten me.
not. Beautiful. Here we go. Class in session. Right now we got 3. How about that? So that to answer you, that's a legit answer. But so a patty roller back in the days of slavery. Burning Spear has a song. Do you remember the days of slavery? So, anyways, back in the days of slavery, there's the underground, and you probably heard of the underground. Have some kind of basic knowledge about that, particularly Ohio being one of the hot spots for destination. Cool spots actually. But anyway, so in the underground, there's a culture because like cats was getting done up, so you can't just be like, "Hey, come here, we'll accept you're poor, you're tired, you're hungry, you're enslaved." Nah, it was very low key, subtle. There were signals, codes, signs, and all the type of stuff. Because there was bounty hunters, bounty killers, and all them other cats. So one of the ways of communicating was through code speaking. Additionally, cats hiding in basements or whatever else. And so when somebody would come to town who was a stranger, or whatever, and start asking questions like, "So, how many people you got living with you? What's your name? Where you from?" It's like, hold up. Those kinfolk, those bounty hunters, bounty hunters, were called patty rollers.
Mhm.
And so, like when Cass was like looking for information, like, wait, hold up, why are you asking all these questions? What you trying? What you trying to do? What you trying to find out? What you trying? So, anyways, when I hear that again, to be honest, and I say that not because I know where it's coming from you, but in the walk that I do, because I get that question very often for many, many, many years, and it's very difficult to answer that
Yes, yeah.
because one of the reasons why is because like even just with the Sona Ashram, which we've been doing for actually since I was in law school, I have kinfolk from who were directly involved, like seriously for years and years and years, who do not mess with each other. Like who love me and support me and what I do is support the cause and everything, but like they just don't mess with another type of kinfolk. And so even just having like a board meeting or whatever else is very difficult. So to answer that question, it's difficult to answer like numbers.
Yeah,
It
you
could
don't
be
have to. Please
no,
don't
no,
if you
no.
don't want to.
I was giving that brief like pretext just to answer some of the difficulties. So, but to answer to be as tangible as I can be, like it can be like this joint. Like when I met X a few months ago, or whatever. It's like that. It can be a few hundred cats. When I'm on the bus, there's dozens of people on the bus, and we have session on the bus. It's very impromptu. I might have mentioned before, like a lot of the things that I do through the years has been just kind of extemporaneous, living in the village, because we haven't had a set place, a safe space to people to go through, like, yo, here's our schedule, this, that, and the other. And so the numbers vary. I mean, I've been in classes, like typical classes or whatever, 30, 50. I've gone to conferences, the Parliament of the World's Religions. I was an ambassador in the Parliament of the World's Religions. It was a gathering of 10,000 people. And so like those are some of the numbers through the years. And in terms of the intentionality, like what we're doing, like we're looking at a group of 20 people and to be like on the road, like a nomadic kind of shepherd kind of lifestyle. And then just chop it up. 20 people in a house, living very modestly and righteously, and inviting classes, inviting sessions accordingly, music performances and circles. Just chop up sessions one-on-one and consultations with professors, administrators, community leaders, and government officials who want to learn like different about traditions, some of the laws and ethics and stories from the different traditions to help them in their governance. And additionally, so it runs the gamut in terms of numbers, but it depends upon the interest and the circumstances.
So, and what's so you were talking about how the topics that you were just recently talking about were about your roots and just respecting each other for each person's like roles and values that they give out to the community. Like, how does that play into day-to-day life for I'm guessing like anybody really.
Okay, beautiful. All right. So first, actually, Corey, actually, I mentioned this before, Corey. It's not the that wasn't necessarily a deep water question or deep waters question because you've been talking. So I've seen you've already doing it. But at the same time, it's like right there. It's like, yo, Confucius has a there's a saying in the Analects or Lun Yu from Confucius, Confuzi, the teacher from Chinese tradition, where he had a student, and they were like having a gathering, talking, trying to work out a problem, whatever. And all of a sudden, one of the students like makes a comment, and then Confuci says like, "Yo, that student right there, he doesn't talk much, but when he talks much, yo, he says something." So now, Corey, we've chopped it up, so I can't say that you don't talk too much because we talked it up a lot more, but
Yeah.
like it's just like, yo, you just add something right there. So to answer your question, actually, I wanted to actually respond to something I saw from one of exit conversations. I think you were with a brother Vaughn is his name, I think.
Van, yeah.
Van, okay.
Van.
No, Van, okay, beautiful. So and I mentioned, see, this is the first time I'm talking with you about this, because I saw your interviews with the confirmation crew out of the Tongva land in LA, and that was that's the first time I see you talk about like your spirituality and like your faith. And additionally, it's like a beautiful thing. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, wait, X got that literacy. Oh, now I can open up like the vocabulary and everything, so we can talk about God now. I can use that because before I'm very hesitant, to be honest with you, because elders and young folk, a lot of kinfolk have been like done bad by religious leaders, and so they're conditioned. They have a triggered reaction of like just saying the word God, even if I'm all love and they know that, they're like, oh yeah. So, but when I see like there's a comfortability with that, I'm like, oh, here we go. So guess what? Here we go. We're gonna talk about God. But you were talking about your experiences, spiritual experiences. The brother JB, the preacher, was talking about his trotting, his spiritual awakening, God speaking to him, and additionally, and now and again, sister, her name is Minju, if I recall correctly. Yeah, got it. All right, so Ali, okay. So with that kind of like testimony of like experience and going through the challenges, the temptations, the getting caught up in stuff and everything, and then like kind of returning to oneself, there's a richness, and so it's very beneficial and beautiful when people utilize the God language. And so because even myself, I'm still kind of like hesitant, because even saying God for me, like I know my ancestors didn't speak English, so God doesn't encapsulate that experience. So I'm less well. The God language is a beautiful thing, and I appreciate that. Now, that being said, what I also recognize when I'm hearing the brother talk about his experiences going to Panama, and doing the music and going out to the churches and making the studio available to the kinfolk to record in a righteous way, in addition, because he recognizes he's been provided with some benefits, and additionally, so he wants to make that available for people who have a righteous cause. Additionally, beautiful thing. Here's one consideration that I was thinking about when I was listening to those conversations, because that's the thing, when I listen to these conversations, I'm like, yo, I want to say, but it's like, yo, no, I can't, so I gotta wait. Oh, patience. So here it is. Now I'm doing it. So one of the things is this. It's a sacred thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's a necessary thing for kinfolk, particularly young kinfolk, to testify and talk about the God experience initially. But at the same time, yo, that's heavy weight. That's heavy weight. And it's beneficial. I find, I was talking to Rajan just earlier this week. We chopped it up. And I was saying with him about his experience being on a boat and being with the fish and everything. I was like comparing to like the God speak to having a huge weight on a tiny boat. It can get workity walkity is the word that I utilize. It's from our family. So it's what I find beneficial is to temporalize that language, not to water it down or whatever. But if we just say God tells me this and God tells me that, and I mean, first of all, it may be difficult for somebody who doesn't have the experience to just like buy it, like what? How do you know it's God, and how do you know it's not Shaitan or the devil or somebody, the tempter or Mara or whatever? Mara. How do you know it's not one of that? So it can be difficult, and cats can be challenged on it. Now he's formidable, thank God, in his talk. But at the same time, what I recognize is like even Jesus talks about the parables and conveys that communication that comes from the Most High in a language that is receptive amongst the people. And so even like telling a story, and if somebody has this message of God, to say like, it's like when Jonah was talking with got the message from God and had to flee or whatever else. But when we relate into something that's a frame of reference beyond our own personal lives, it helps to further like gird the rootedness within what we're communicating, and also it helps us share the weight, because it's a whole lot of weight because eventually, like, the challenges come in, like, oh, God talks to you, huh? Oh yeah, we got a place for that. It's called it's called pink slip and this, that, and the other.
Right.
And cats who have like tenacious minds can be extremely scrutinizing, just like the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And doing that, and it can be for the most formidable kinfolk. It can be very challenging because we can get easily caught up in our own kind of like temporal kind of approximations or whatever, and contradictions or whatever else. And it's like, oh, you don't have an answer for that. Oh, is God not talking to you? So when we relate it to stories and parables, it's not a matter of like sugarcoating it or watering it down, but it helps to like relay it in an immediate way, in a shared frame of reference. So that was one
Is
of the
it fair to say digestible or no?
Yeah, I mean that's another way of describing it. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay.
So I mean that's like the next stage of receptivity is the digestion and processing. In addition, because then kinfolk can look that up. Oh, I remember that story. Let me read that about it. And then when they see that passage, they look at the passage before that one, then they see the passage one after that one, and then now like they're doing it on their own. Particularly for the self starters, it's not just a matter of relying upon what somebody else says and then waiting for the next time they talk with them. They're like going on their own and like finding the truth amongst their personal experience as well. So it's digestion, it's assimilation of the nutrients, it's processing, it's muscle building, it's all them things. It's the whole digestive system and all them other things, respiratory and all that other stuff.
One love, one love. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it. I really appreciate the insight as well. Not a lot of people watch those interviews, so I'm really grateful that you watched it, my brother.
it's quality. It's quality. We worry less about the quantity, as Corey and I were talking about earlier this week. It's
Mhm.
the quality. It's the quality.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
My question to you is, so just recently, probably within like the last month or so, is like Randall,
Aye.
Robinson passed away, and like
Yeah.
you talked about like being underneath his organization. Could you just give some insight? Like,
Underneath.
was you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like,
Buried underneath the foundations of the no, I got you.
but Trans
Yeah,
Africa, you know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
All right, so I want to talk about that. But I have a predetermined sequence here.
Oh, you got it. My bad. I didn't mean. I
If
didn't
you
mean.
did not know, I'll make you privy. And
Sorry.
this whole thing has been predetermined and everything. Now, but now I was going to get into like the God talk and the spiritual
Oh
experience.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do that. There actually, I'll say this. There are three things that I wanted to, because you and I, we talked about having a convo about women and marriage and healthy relationship. Because you talk about that too with your convo with JB and his experience with his girlfriend, now wife, and additionally your experience in Texas. I'm not putting you on blast because you already put this out there in the
Yeah,
joke.
you're
Like
right. You're
you're
right.
talking
You're
about
right.
you're talking about your relationship with your girlfriend as you were just getting settled in the Texas area, the land of the Apache. And so you're like, yo, I'm going through those challenges right now, and God's speaking to me and like informing what I should do. And he said, God said this like a year ago, and I didn't listen. And now it's like, oh, now it's even hard, difficult. So we talked about having that conversation about marriage and relationship, women and healthy relationship before. So those are the three things that I'm interested in, like drawing the line, like drawing the string, the cord between these experiences: God,
Yeah.
marriage, and women, and then like village and purpose and life mission, which is where I want to talk about like Randall Robinson and what he does. Of blessed memory, peace and blessings be with him and his family. So on the God thing, I'll share with you, because JB was talking about some of his experience in UCLA and like the challenges he had in dropping out, and like the devaluation sense of self, because there's just so much. And even Minju was talking about being at MIT and dropping out, or I don't want to say dropping out, but just like taking leave, because it's like so much of our value is placed upon like our institutional affiliation. And so it's a very challenging thing to go from that. And so, but that's like the nature of the spiritual path and the spiritual awakening. Is like, yo, we see something of greater value and of greater purpose. So I wanted to share with you a spiritual experience that I had as I was beginning my spiritual path. And it was my freshman year at university. And so I think I mentioned to you before, like when I was in high school, 4 years being corny and like I was cool with all the groups and I was like decent or whatever, but I would no parties. No, I think I went to one party my senior year, and I went to prom. How that's a whole nother story. How that happened, yeah. But it happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank God. But anyways, and anyways, but my point is, my whole 4 years. That's 4 years, yo. I went to school and home, school and home. I would rush home because in my day at Heights, it was hundreds of cats who were fighting in the streets. It was melees like no hyperbole. It was just one. I was at the barbershop 1 minute, and then the next minute, right outside the barbershop. So you get peace and blessings to you. Uh, Outside the barbershop, hundreds of cats were scrapping. I'm coming from Roughing Montessori, sheltered environment for 11 years, graduating with 12 kinfolk, and here I'm with thousands of cats who at each other. So I'm 14 years old. So I would go to school and walk up. School would let out at 2:50 p.m. I would see how fast I could get home before 3 p.m. and I would catch the cartoons and I would watch TV and everything else. So that was my life for 4 years. Extremely tough because at that same time, I'm asking my questions. Am I normal? Yo, I don't have a girlfriend. What's going on with that? Yo, I'm not. Nobody's like. I don't. I don't hang out with nobody. Nobody's calling me. I ain't got no stories. Yo, 4 years of that. And so for those 4 years, it was just like, yo, just stay the path. Like there's a purpose. University, that's like the Shangri-La. Just focus on that, focus on that, focus on that. So okay, fine. I got to university, and when I got there, yo, I'm kind of like, okay, I can see some things. And now, but even then, I'm still like awkward, overweight, this, that, and the other, corny dude, and everybody else is still like, yo, da da da. And so I did make some friends, a few friends. And the thing about being at a university is like you can't hide. Like you in your dorm room, you don't have control of that. It's not some. I can't. It's not going from school to like the TV and watching it for the rest of my days safe at home. Like I'm in my dorm room and I ain't got control of that. So, point long story. The point is that at one point I had a friend. I have a few friends, but one of my closest friends who would like we would chop it up, play Madden and everything else like that. A series of events happened whereby we were at a mall, we made a bet, he wouldn't do something, he did it, and I told him beforehand, yo, I ain't got the money now, but when I get it from my parents, I'll give it to you. So he's like, okay. And then so like a few weeks later, like I'm in my dorm room, whatever, my roommate opens the door, he comes in, he got his shirt off, comes in, I'm sitting on the bed, he comes in, boom, smacks me in the face. I'm like, yo, what? Now, first of all, I'm thinking to myself, do I have the green light? Can I go at this fool? Beautiful brother, and the story goes on that, right? But like in my mind, like my dad raised me up, like if somebody hits you, you hit him back. That was like the rule, because otherwise, yo, Kaz is gonna walk over and do it. So that was my rule, and I got in the scraps a few occasions, but I'm at that moment, I've never been slapped before in my life, and so I'm thinking, wait, technically, like it was like a very legalistic thing. Do I have the green light? Can I fight now? Because I don't start any fights. Do I have a green light to fight this cat? Because he just smacked me. Does a smack count as a hit? Because shoving, I don't have the green light for shoving. So I'm sitting on my bed just thinking for a few milliseconds, like, yo, can I fight now? And I'm just thinking about there, and no time to think about it. Smack again. I'm like, yo, and I didn't have the green light. I couldn't tell myself like, yo, okay, he hit that side. I've been hit before, and I fought cats who hit me. But yo, I didn't have the green light on it. So I just paused there, and he was just like, he came in with one of his dudes. He's like, yeah, da, da, da. And afterwards, after hitting me, smacking me twice, he went out. And I'm just like, God, like this is my closest kinfolk. I was like telling him things that I wouldn't tell anybody. And he just come in out the blue. I don't even know what's going on. And at that point, after a few months, I'm just like, I started wandering the campus. It was dark. It was late at night, like 10 p.m., 11 p.m., whatever. I started wandering the campus just like, yo, and that's when I started talking with God, like, yo, God, like I just spent 4 years at high school, like tough. And like I thought this was supposed to be like the point where I was supposed to be like come into my own and everything else. And yo, now it's even worse. Cats is coming at me. So that was the first time in my life that I went into the chapel and I sat in the pews and I got on my knees and I prayed. And the thing was, like, the chapel was always open, the light was always on the campus, and so it was always accessible. It was a non-denominational, so I felt for the welcoming and everything else like that. I didn't go there previously too tough, but I just knew like this is the place to go, and I need to have that conversation right now. I didn't have it ever before in my life, but yo, I need to have that conversation now. I got in the pews, got on my knees, and I'm like, yo, God, what's going on? Like, and so and the message that I got was like, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. Just keep going. Just keep going. It's going to be all right. And so from that, I kind of like had a steadiness. I'm like, okay. I went back home, relaxed, or whatever else. And so just to kind of wrap that part of the story, turns out my roommate had lied to him and told him I had the money and like I was clowning him or whatever else. So it was a miscommunication. But I didn't speak to him the next like year or whatever. Like that was done deal. I actually gave him money, and I was very conflicted about that. But like I was like, I'm just gonna do it. There it is, and not talk to him ever again in life. That's it. And so turns out like the next year, we're both going out. We're both going out for the same fraternity. Aha, how about that? And not only that, but we're in the same student leader group, which was like an elite kind of organization on campus. We're both in that, and I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to mess with him. We'll keep our own distance or whatever. But then he's going out for the fraternity with me, and not only that, he was part of like the crew that I was with as well. And I'm like, oh, we're gonna have to squash this. So eventually, like we squashed it, and he came up to me. He's like, "Yo, Peter." He explained it. That was when I found out that my roommate and he was like, "Yo, I'm sorry, my bad. I know I was wrong." And so that was it. Now, and from that, like, and that's another one of the beautiful things about the fraternity is because we learn, and the same thing with sports and teamwork. And additionally, like we learn to set aside our personal differences for a greater cause. And so from that point, after we squashed it, he and I were like tightest of friends for the next few years at university, even afterwards. So that's the story. But my point is that's when like I started having that conversation with God. And like there are a lot of things that happened all the way through when I graduated from law school, but that's a period of life when we are going from the protection of our family, like our parents, and kind of just like having that structure, that immediate physical and scheduled structure of our family into life. And when we're at university, there's still some structure. We still have some guidance, professors, counselors, this and the other, but we're starting to get into it ourselves. And when we have that, like we're starting to get called into our path and into our mission. And particularly as we get towards graduation, that's when it gets serious. And then that's when my like spiritual path kind of like got started in earnest. And so that's what I'm gonna say about the first thing about God and the God language. And I'm gonna pause there and see if there's anything you want to say that. But the next topic is the beautiful women and marriage and healthy relationship. So, no, excuse me, pardon me. So today, I'm supposed to share this. What I do today, because to answer Corey's question, like when you're talking about the daily thing. So this is where it translates into the daily thing. One of the things I wanted to share with you from watching the conversation that you had also is I have yet to tell you like what I do in my spiritual path on a regular daily basis. Because they don't come from no place. I gotta work to have this lightheartedness. When I talk with Ron John, early this week, he communicates that he appreciates like the vibe that I share, the message, the honesty, and additionally, I'm like, yo, it's tenacious. It comes from honesty, and as Lao Tzu communicates in the Tao Te Ching, towards the end, like truth is nasty. I mean, truth is beautiful, but at the same time, truth is nasty because we got to call ourselves out, and it's very tough to do that. But when we do that, I also communicate to Rajan like that's the fountain of youth. That's where we get like that lightheartedness, that's and enable us to be empathetic and relate with people, and additionally, because we're not hiding as much, and further. So, but it's a continual thing. Like it's just like, oh, I'm enlightened now. Let's chill. No, I got to work on it daily basis. So here's what I do. Some of the things I do. First of all, and it comes from the traditional methods, traditional practices from the earth. So you might recognize some of these. One thing I do is I pray every day in the AM. I pray Salat 5 times a day when I'm doing it nice. 0 times when I'm not on my game. Usually averaging maybe about 3 or 4, and it's not supposed to be talked about like that, but I'm just being honest about where I am, and particularly now I'm working on it now. But that's one thing I do 5 times a day, and that helps in giving structure, and it helps with the discipline. It's a beautiful, awesome thing. It's a sacred cipher. That's one thing. But I also daven in the Jewish practice as well. And I saw you flexing your hamotzi with the brother from Brooklyn as well in one of your interviews as well. So X come out the woodwork. But so I do that. I say Shema, and I'm actually literate in Hebrew. My proficiency isn't the grandest, but I do that too. I practice samadhi, meditation, on a daily basis, at least 5 minutes a day, being quiet, sitting quietly, just calming myself. And additionally, I do it like AM is one period when I do many of those things. Then I do a midday prayer, and in the midday prayer, I also recite a mantra that includes my ethics, the ethics that I practice: peace, sharing, honesty, sobriety, and chastity. Wow, that was supposed to be number 3. So interesting, right there. But anyways, so I do in the teachings that communicate that from the different traditions to remind myself and to guide myself. So that's midday, and then I'm supposed to be doing an evening prayer, and it's been a minute since I've done that, because that's actually very important, because it helps us kind of like calm ourselves down and get ready to bed, and like get our rest hour, and That's one thing I'm challenged with at the moment. So anyways, that's on a daily basis. In addition to that, I do yoga at least once a week when I'm doing it nice. And I do additional meditation. I observe Shabbat, so I'm resting from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. And then I do Sunday worship, and I have a service and read from the Gospels. And additionally, on Sundays, I do Friday Juma. Now I do Juma where I live, and there are circumstances why that is, but that's it. So again, there's a regularity. Right now, today exactly is one of the holiest days in the Buddhist calendar. It's Vesak, which commemorates the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and nirvana. So the moon cycles, new moons and full moons, is again another meditative place, particularly in Eastern tradition. So those are some of the things that I do on a regular basis. I'm vegan. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. And within the Rastafarian, we emphasize like connection with nature, being out here in the natural environment, the trees, the animals. Same thing with Native tradition. We honor our ancestors and our relatives, all the relatives around us, and genuinely and thoroughly. So these are some of the things that I do in terms of having my spiritual centering and strengthening. And so it's beneficial that to like speak to that, because this vibe, whatever, don't just come out of like, just like, it don't come from a bottle. How about that? It don't, and so anyways, that's it comes from a discipline, and that's part of what I do on that respect. So, and it took me a long time to find that through the years of study, talking with people, and additionally, so that's what I've cultivated through the years, and what I share with our spiritual community.
Mantras and of your ethics is one of the best things that I've heard. Part of what you just said there, all of it was golden right there. So I want to ask, like, so what do you tell yourself? And you say you do this midday every day?
All right. So actually mantras are part of my AM prayers as well, and part of the PM prayers. I mean, I do mantras in each stage. There are 5 in doing salat. There are 5 times a day to pray, and then from sundown to nightfall. And then in 3 of those, like at the beginning prayer, AM, I do other things as well in terms of like Jewish tradition, additionally, because there's the AM prayer in there. Davening Shakrit is the AM service, and so that coincides with this right here. Then it's the midday prayer, which is the second prayer in Islam, coincides with the midday prayer. So I also do mantras, and additionally with that, and then there's two intermediary prayers within Islam, and then the night prayer is kind of like the concluding thing, and I do prayers with that as well. So, anyways, what I say in these mantras, first of all, you say what I say to myself. It's not me. It's not me. Well, technically, actually, it's a nice conversation, but it's what is said to me, and I found things that resonate with me, and then I continue to repeat it. So that's what the mantras are. Now there are some mantras that I construct. For example, one mantra that I do every day throughout the day. This is like my go-to mantra. One of my go-to mantras is Ahimsa Ubuntu Veritas Haya Shumaka Huge Samadhi Shema Shabono Narap. So basically, those are just 11 words, 11 principles from 11 different languages, 11 different traditions from around the earth. And I mean, I could like go on for, it would take a while to like explain all that, but Ahimsa, Ubuntu, Veritas, Chaya, Shu, Maka, Hige, Samadhi, Shema, Shabono, Narap. And if I even decode all that, it would take a long time. But those are the ethics that, to be honest, it's always in my mind. Whenever cats are coming at me with static or whatever, that's something I do as like a force field to kind of maintain the calmness. Because when I graduated from law school and the first time I got locked up and everything like that, like one thing I always had was just like, even in my dorm room, particularly in law school and everything, I always have like a safe, like a quiet place where I can just like get into my mind and like calm down or whatever. But when I graduated from law school, I didn't have a quiet place. Like there was always something happening, and it was like even when I was by myself and it was quiet around me, like it was still like it was there, and I felt like the sanctity of my mind being infiltrated. And particularly like these days with all the messaging and everything, I see like how people are so like caught up and distracted, and their concentration is like diluted and infiltrated. And so this is something that I do to kind of to effectively maintain the concentration and maintain some interior sanctuary. And there's things it doesn't just come out of nowhere. There are elements that are required in, like, in terms when somebody's like comes to making their own mantra or whatever. But there's so many mantras from traditions. There's the Gayatri mantra. There's the Shema Gayatri mantras from Hinduism. There's the Shema from Judaism. There's the Fatiha from Islam. There's so many mantras and proclamations that are so strong, so formidable. When people like memorize that, recite that, commit that to heart, it's very effective in kind of calming people down and establishing that sanctuary. Some of the elements of doing that include like doing the practice, because it's not just a matter of memorizing words. It has to have meaning, and the meaning comes from our actions of prayer and meditation that feeds the strength, feeds like the potency of those words and those mantras. But it has to like be genuine for ourselves as well, speak to ourselves, connect us with our kinfolk and our ancestors. And additionally, so there are a lot of elements that go into like the efficacy of a mantra. But that's some of the things. If that
You
answers your
feel
question.
that it does. Does it feel like does it help you slow down, I guess, essentially? Because I feel like even now, right now, I'm so caught up in like everything else that's going on that like mentally just don't feel like you're like, so
Yeah.
does that help you just like kind of center yourself, and like maybe somebody does try to press you on the bus, or somebody does try to press you on Coventry, like how do you go about that, I guess?
So first of all, patience is the foundation of all blessings in this life. Patience. There was a brother who was talking about it recently. I saw on one of my IG reels kind of binges. Somebody was talking about patience, but somebody famous. But anyways, patience is the foundation of all blessings. And so when you talk about slowing things down, calming, it comes from patience. And the mantras help with that. But there's a formula that I share for cultivating patience, which is just be still, just stop what everyone's doing. Not just stop whatever is stop. The second one is be quiet. Don't try to vent. Don't try to release. Don't try to get it out. Just stop. Just be quiet. And then the third one is be honest. And that's a huge leap. So being honest means like pay attention. If somebody's chopping at you and getting mad or whatever else, be honest. Does this person have a point? Is there any validity with what this person says? If there's not validity, why am I here? I could just bounce otherwise. And then like, is there any BS on my part? Be honest is like all around universal. So is there any BS on my part? Do I actually need this? Is this something that's a priority? And so that's in terms of cultivating patience. When we stack up those patients and we do that process, the answers start to arrive to us. And then we start to get some insight and guidance about how we progress and what our priorities are, and what our process is in fulfilling those priorities. Now, that's easier said than done, particularly when we're in the thick of it. And so the mantras help us. It's like working out. The mantras, I mean, yeah, the mantras and doing the meditation and the prayers, and additionally are like the conditioning, the preseason conditioning and everything, that strengthens our mind and our heart and our spirit, our body too, to prepare for the stress and like the antagonisms and all of this other type of stuff. And so when we find ourselves into that, rather than just saying we can say, hold up, let me do this mantra right now, and then the mantras calm us down and then give us that quiet space, even if just in our minds, and just we're dealing with it. We can always stop wherever we're at. We can always stop, and we can always be quiet. But that quietness, we can be quiet with our mouth. But if like we find that cats are even like getting in our head and everything, like the mantras help us to cultivate and maintain that quietness within our minds as well. And so we don't even have to say the mantras aloud. It's beneficial to say the mantras aloud, but it's just a matter of maintaining that quiet space in the mind.
Peter, thank you for being open and honest. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. I know you deep like that, brother. That's why I always wanted to see,
All thanks and praise to the Most High. Yeah, I appreciate that.
I just wanted to see where you were at on that. So I really
Okay.
appreciate it. Thank you for sharing, and
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that story about you freshman year and getting slapped like out
Yeah.
of nowhere.
That's what you remember, yeah? Peter got slapped. It
It's
was
the
it was
highlight. It's one of
it,
the
it was it
highlights
was
of
like a
it.
Dave Chappelle. What was that skit with Dave Chappelle being
You talk,
what's that?
you talking about the one with Charlie Murphy?
Yeah, I'm trying to
When
remember the
he
name of the singer that he was playing
Rick
though.
Rick
James.
Rick
James. Rick
James,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
James.
yeah.
Hello,
Uh,
darkness.
my friend, no, I didn't see any baby powder or anything else like that. but he smacked the and I was just and seriously, I wasn't even matter as scared at that point. I was literally like thinking, like in a very legalistic way, do I have the green light? Did he hit me? Because again, like cats like to shove and like gesture and everything else like that, and I don't bite on those things even at that stage. And so again, like if I've been hit before, like hey, it knocked me in my jaw. I'm like, oh, boom, let's go. And that was it. And I had a technique. I was like 300 pounds, so I wasn't scrap or whatever. It's like I grapple, rest him on the ground, pin him down, and then like that's it. And I'm some voracious beast, whatever, but I've had those experiences before that. So I'm just thinking in my mind, just do I have a green light? And I didn't. So I'm like, oh, I couldn't say it anyways. See, you get me talking about being smacked. I got some. Are we getting ready to wrap up at this point? Is that what this is?
No,
Okay.
We still here. We still here.
All right, cool. So yeah. Because we got better things to talk about than being slapped. Because I also have to say this: my protocols of engagement are different now. Because I'm not pugilistic. I don't have weapons of. Actually, I should say I don't have lethal weapons, guns, knives, and stuff like that. Because in this spiritual path, like I've had to make certain vows of like peace and discipline. So I don't have a lot of those things that other cats have at their disposal in terms of protecting myself and others. I do have other things though. I can have a taser because that's not lethal, and that can be effective. And there are other methodologies as well. But my point, anyways, we got better things to talk about. But
well,
yeah,
I got a comment real quick.
yo,
You were talking about like a response to certain like comments that might like challenge us, and what am I trying to say? Basically, I'll say this is that I think it's very important that when you are challenged by a certain like belief that you don't, and your like immediate response is just to reject it. Like you gotta like sit back and think, why are you rejecting it? Why is it making you upset? And I heard someone say this. It's like if there's two ways you can come out of that. You're coming out with your original belief that was challenged, and it's just even stronger now that you've like thought about it, or you see the other side, and then something might come of that. So something you were mentioning reminded me of that.
So I had a conversation with a beautiful sister at the university a few months ago. I actually gave her, I don't know if this is part of our first conversation, but I gave her the spiel about 10 teachers. Who are the 10 teachers that somebody wants to have as like to start a school or whatever else? So I asked her that question. I gave her my 10 list, and her first response was, you should have some women. And I was like, oh, wait, first of all, how are you talking to me like that? I'm an elder. But how you gonna tell me what I should do? Why don't you tell me what you got? So anyways, and we talked about that, and we got into and I could tell and that's the thing, like the generation now, like they have this like lack of deference and this lack of respect of just like talking to elders, and additionally and being oblivious, like not even knowing that it's like not how to do it. And so I think my generation, we knew that, and we still like but we did it with like a certain we grew up comparatively old school. And so we knew like when we're doing it, we're gonna have to either pay for it or we're gonna have some reason why we're doing it. Then I think the next generation behind me was just like, I don't care. Everything is bollocks, and I'm gonna do it. But they still knew that it was like not the thing to do. And I think the generation now is oblivious. Like they're just like, hey, what's up, fool? I'm like, oh, what? No. 15-year-old, like, what's up, dude? No, dude, I'm congenial, so I know like I can't be like all happy and just like expect people to say stir. I'm not. It's not like that, but just a lot of way people, just to be honest, a lot of way Americans talk with each other is antagonistic and just like very challenging, and to do it to an elder. Anyways, long story short, I had a conversation with her, and I could tell like she wasn't like necessarily intending to be disrespectful, whatever. But I'm like, yo. So we started talking about it, and longer. And so this response to what you said, Corey, and this is just a long story on to that. But you've given me the green light to do tangents, so I just want that to be stated for the record. I've got the green light.
I stand by it.
From Corey himself. I've actually got orders to feel free. So anyways, I have a conversation with the sister. So we were like, at some point it's funny because she was at a desk and she was sitting down and I was standing up, and I felt myself like lecturing, like talking down. So I got on my knees and started bending so we'd be at the eye level. because I didn't have a chair at that moment. So I'm just sitting, squatting, quasi squatting. And so she's sitting there. And I mentioned at some point, like she got out of her chair and she started squatting too, just to like kind of like say we're on equal footing and everything like that. So we were chopping up whatever. And so at some point in the conversation, I said to her this. I said, you know what? One thing that you recognize with me and that I share with Kinfolk is that I'm always right. So that's just for your information. That's facts. And the only thing I like further than being right is being corrected. How about that? Because within our own minds, particularly when we go live life for a while, we've arrived at understandings of things, and there's reasons why we've arrived at understandings of things. So in our minds, we are right. Like we've got it figured out. However, at the same time, we don't know everything. And like you said, Corey, like some cats can come in and share something new. So if somebody can genuinely like, so you know what, if you did this, you might find it further to your liking, whatever. I'm like, thank you. I just learned something. Appreciate that. And we always learn something. There's a difference between learning and being corrected. So, but my point is, like, to be honest, like I've been in this game and been in this life for a while. I don't know everything. Actually, I do know everything just as much as everybody else knows everything. But at the same time, we kind of have these veils of this earthly realm or whatever that kind of clouds it from our recollection. So I am right, but at the same time, some kinfolk can show me something else. But the thing is, it's comparatively rare, because one of the things I'm very careful about doing is making absolute statements and professing to be like absolutely perfect. I'm very careful and being lawyers trained. When people talk about having legalese and everything else, and lawyers doing all these twisted turnarounds and things, because when lawyers talk, lawyers make an effort to make a factual statement that cannot be argued or disputed. And to be honest, when we're in this life, in the spiritual path particularly, like it's very difficult to do that, because anything could be argued, anything could be disputed. At some point when we're on the spiritual path, we have to recognize what the letter of the law is and then what the spirit of the law is. So when we say something, we just be like, you knew what I was talking about. Don't, come on, man, don't try to like da. Lawyers can't do that, because lawyers reduce things to writing. So lawyers can't say to the other lawyer, the multi-billion-dollar lawyer whose rates are like $5,000 an hour, that can't say what we meant. No. This is what it says, and you're contractually obligated. So, lawyer, I'm trained in that. So when I speak and when I think, even on the spiritual path, it's kind of legit. So I'm right, and it's very infrequent that somebody says da. But when that does happen, I'm still right, but now I'm corrected, because at that moment, that's what my understanding was. So that applies to everybody. Everybody can say that as well. So anyways, that was just a snarky, provocative proclamation. I'm always right, and the only thing I like better than being right is being corrected. So are we ready to talk
what
about
your thoughts when what were your thoughts when she asked what about the female teachers?
So
I
first of
also
all, I
want
had
to
to
talk
recognize.
about that.
All right, so we're gonna look at you, I might have been stepping on your thunder right there, because that was a beautiful segue to like talking about relationship with women and marriage and like healthy relationship between man and woman. So now I have to recognize for myself, one, it was late. It was like 9 p.m. It was after dark. I mentioned before I think in a combo with you, Corey, like right now it's daylight here. There's the energy. It's day energy. It's light energy right now. That influences the vibe of how we communicate. When it's dark energy is not evil, but it's a different energy. And there are different things that come out. There's a little bit of that primal nature. And additionally, particularly when it's between a man and woman communicating, that's just actuality. And at that point, it was dark, it was night. And I had to be mindful of that, because me, my spiritual walk and everything else like that, I have further like obligations and like requirements. I've got this see, and additionally, that reminds me of those obligations. So when it's after dark, and I'm talking to a young sister, and additionally, I have to be, why are you doing that? Now, there's purposefulness in that, but even then, I have to be very mindful, because many cats who are very orthodox were like, no talking, no contact, nothing. So even I have to look at myself for what I was doing to contribute to the conservative, regardless of what she says. She could have called me all types of da. It's still on me for initiating the interaction. So that's one thing I'm mindful of. And at the same time, I have to also recognize I was tired. I was fatigued. I didn't have the same patience. I didn't have the same energy level to be disciplined and trained to be like absorb what I considered as an affront or a disrespect, and then respond to that with like some humor or some lighthearted deflection or whatever else, and then communicate something recorded. I didn't have that at that moment. I was fatigued. So again, I have to look at myself, and that leads me to share some very foundational lesson that I've learned about women, and even just about life, but particularly about women. It's this: not to get I have to get this right. I did a nice lead up, and now I'm going to pause and hesitate and trip a little bit. So it's beauty. So here we go. Not to get mad at a woman. Never get mad. Never blame a woman, and never try to punish a woman in any way. Those three things. Never to get mad. Whatever she says, however much she's tripping or whatever else, whoever she is, not to get mad at her. Do not get mad. Second one is do not blame her. Don't say, oh, it's her fault. She did this. Adam says, oh, this woman you gave me the. No, Adam, own up to it. You ate it yourself. God didn't speak to Eve. God speak to you. That's on you. Don't talk about your woman. She gave you this. Nah. Don't blame a woman for nothing. Peace and blessings be with Adam as well. Third, don't punish a woman, because first of all, if you're not mad at her and you're not blaming her, what's the reason for punishing her? But so much like a woman does something, because women can be so much in building our egos and building our sense of self, even beyond our egos, just so affirmational and beautiful. And at the same time, women can what up and not even say nothing, just a look, and you just feel like nothing, less than nothing. Do not try to get back. Do not try to punish her. Nothing, none of that. None of that. And the reason why that is because what I've learned, and I'm still learning in this life, is that there's a reason why women do everything that women do. And women so often know so many things that men are just don't pay attention to, and share things for reasons that men just aren't ready to see at that moment. And particularly like with a mother and son, obviously, like mother says, don't do that, don't do that. And you're as a son, you're just like, oh, I want this bag of chips, and oh, I want that. And because we just caught up in stupid dot. And eventually, like when we mature and we see what other cats get caught up in everything, you're like, you know what? Mama was teaching me something right there. Okay, I see. Yo, that don't stop. It continues through life. So like women have a knowledge about things that oftentimes boys and men ain't ready to see. And when we start to recognize that, it's like, okay, you know what? I'm just not it's not women, women aren't perfect per se, any further or less than men are. But it's just a matter of not blaming, because it's so easy to do when the women love us and share that beautiful, miraculous love with us. And we feel like so put down by the world, particularly kinfolk of men of African ancestry. Like everybody's on us, down oppression. We're the lowest of the low, and we got nobody beneath us. It's so easy to take that love that women share with us beautifully and miraculously, even involuntarily, that love that women share with us, and like just deflect that kind of abuse and devaluation onto the women. And additionally, no, don't do that. So that punishment, let that go. And when we like recognize the appropriateness of those two things, not to get mad, not to blame, and not to punish any woman, we've also recognized, that applies to men too. How about that? It applies to boys and girls, and it applies to all of life. Not to get mad, not to blame, and not to punish. Now, cats is tripping. Women are tripping sometimes. Men are tripping sometimes. Boys and girls are tripping sometimes. Life is tripping sometimes. We can recognize that. And it doesn't mean we agree with everything or kowtow to everything or do everything everybody else tells us to do, whatever else. When that happens, we can say, you're tripping right there. That's not getting mad. That's not blaming. That's not punishing. We can blaming is like something that we're experiencing and putting the onus on. If we see somebody doing something that's not right, we can inform them of such and be like, that's hurting somebody. It's not a blaming per se. I'm gonna have to maybe I'm seeing like the confusion between those two things of like looking at something that's causing harm and then the distinguishing between that and blaming somebody.
I was thinking, I think it really leads to like what you're saying right now is accountability, right? Like
Okay.
that helps you be accountable more, right? If you're not angry, if you're not blaming, right? If you're not punishing, then you can be more accountable for whatever conflict you may be in. with a girl or with a guy or whatever, right? Like
Mm.
you're able to be more accountable for your actions and more reflective. So I think that just overall, yes, without a doubt, with the women, yes, and like you're saying, without a doubt, yes, for the men as well. I think that is just profound, honestly. Let me put it to you like that, Peter.
Beautiful. I appreciate that, X. And again, all thanks and praise to the Most High. And I'm going to say that I've shared this with a brother recently. I was I was sitting down in front of the place where I stay up on Mayfield, and I was just sitting like I'm doing right here, whatever, just like enjoying the day. Where the young brother was walking by just a couple weeks ago. Actually, I saw him yesterday at the same spot where I meet you, X. And so he was walking by, and he just stopped and he's like, "Yo, what do you read?" I had a book in me in my hands. It was actually a book that I wrote, and he's like, "What are you reading?" I'm like, "My life story," as ego or whatever that is. That was legitimate. And I showed him the book. It was entitled "I Am Not Human." So here's this brother coming in from out the blue. First time I see him in life, or whatever. He's like, "Well, you're reading my life story. I am not human." And so already he got a fast forward introduction. So we started chopping or whatever, and I shared with him this joint, if I recall correctly. I said, in life there are four essential discrimination. One is healthy, non-healthy, recognizing what causes us benefit in terms of health and what causes us affliction. That's one thing. Second thing is cause and effect. If we experience a healthy thing, like what do we do to experience a healthy thing? Or when we experience an unhealthy thing, what do we do to experience that unhealthy thing? So those are the two like main joints right there, the beginning things. And we learn that at a young age. For us to get at the ages we're at respectively, it has to be because we've had some knowledge about the healthy and unhealthy cause and effect. So then the third one is like the high joint kind of sort of, and it's like the quintessential discrimination, which is this: being able to distinguish between the essential and the non-essential. And that's tough because there are a lot of things that provide us with pleasure in this life that we don't necessarily equate as being unhealthy. But at the same time, when we start valuing and attaching a need to that, and then additionally, we start to get it into a slippery slope, and our lives get affected accordingly. So with essential and unessential, and then that gets back to the initial the primordial thing of pain and pleasure, because again in life there are a lot of things that it's not that difficult to discern between pain and pleasure generally, but the thing is a lot of things that give us pain are actually healthy. Like when we're working out and when we experience the pain and everything else like that, we know it's our muscles tearing down and they get rebuilt to get stronger. And additionally, when we're running and we're building that endurance, and additionally, it's pain, but at the same time, we know there's healthiness within that. And at the same time, there are things that provide us pleasure that are actually very seriously affecting our health. And it can be very difficult to recognize that. And so those are the four discriminations. And so when it comes to the difference between blaming a woman or blaming anybody, it's a matter of, again, just simply looking at cause and effect, healthy and unhealthy cause and effect. And if a woman or anybody is doing something that's causing unhealthiness, it's just a matter of stating that, as a matter of factly, not blaming or like that. And also, one of the initial teachings that the Buddha shares in the Dhammapada is that like this is like the opening verses. It's verse 5 in the first chapter, but it basically says, if I recall that correctly, actually it might be verse 3. Either way, this is what it says. He says, like, he robbed me, he beat me, he defeated me, he stole from me. Those who harbor those feelings, those sentiments, that hate, never get beyond the hate. And then it says again, he robbed me, he beat me, he stole from me. Those who do not harbor that hate get beyond that hate. And so when we blame others for the things that we experience, oh, you did this and it's your fault, this, that, and the other, we're giving the power to whoever that is. The crown is going into that individual, whether it's oppression or whatever else. Wherever we're pointing the blame at, that's where we're giving the power, and we're ceding our sovereignty to that entity, saying it's your fault and it's you have the control, and I'm just a peon in this joint. But when we blame ourselves, whatever it is, whatever we're experiencing, when we blame ourselves, we empower ourselves, we retain the crown, and we also have the responsibility of doing something, accountability, as you said, X, of doing something about that. So and that pertains to women as well. And so as influential and as encouraging as women are, and additionally, when we don't blame a woman for anything, we have a further amount of a mindfulness of what we're doing as men to contribute to the circumstances, and what we can do as men to help remedy and make the circumstances healthy and prosperous and harmonious. And so that's part of the guidance in terms of women. So there's something else I want to share in terms of like a healthy relation, and actually just like focusing on the notion of marriage. If that's amenable with you, unless there's something else you want to follow up, you want to share on that.
Let's go ahead.
Our marriage. Here we go. So first, I want to share like just the ancient traditional like framework of marriage, like the what marriage is. So marriage is a bond between a man and a woman, and within that bond, men and women have relation and bring life children into this earthly realm, and so there's a standard, there's a process and a standard that signifies that bond, like that says like this is how it happens. So it's there are two stages to a marriage, and this comes from traditionally from Judaism, from the tradition of Israel, but this it similarly exists within Islam, and we can see it also within of the Indian the Desi traditions as well. But there's two parts to the marriage. The first part is the agreement, the bond between the man and the woman. That's the first part. The second part is the bond that the man and the woman. Oh, when that happens, it's man and wife right there. When there's that bond, there's that agreement. It's man and wife. And then, but there's the second part to like fully manifest that. So the second part is when the husband and wife go to the community and say, we are husband and wife. We want you to recognize us. We want you to support our union. We want you to welcome us within the community as husband and wife. That's the second part. So for the first part, there's certain things that are required to authenticate that union, to authenticate that bond. And traditionally within Judaism, particularly, and again, additionally, there are three things that qualify the man and woman to be husband and wife, and any one of these three things is enough. It's enough to do it. So these are the three things. The first thing is that the man provides a woman with a dowry, a marital gift, a price. It's an ancient thing. He provides an amount of gold or whatever it is, and in that it's a formal thing. It's a husband and wife. That's one way of establishing the bond immediately between a man and a woman as husband and wife. The second one is if they sign a contract with at least two witnesses in the tradition of Israel or otherwise in other traditions, but a contract between the man and woman saying we're husband and wife, and there it is. That's the second way. And then the third way is physical consummation. The man and woman have sexual intercourse with each other. Then they're husband and wife at that point. That qualifies. Any one of those by itself is enough to qualify for that first part. So when that happens, they're husband and wife. Then for the second part, when the husband and wife are together, they say, okay, now we want the community to like support us, to recognize us. Then there are three things that are involved. All three are necessary for the community to sanction and recognize officially the marriage. One is that there's a public announcement that says the husband and wife are together. Second is that there's a gathering with members of the community that show the man and woman together as husband and wife. And the third is cohabitation of the man and woman together with each other. And so those are the parameters. Those are like the protocols concerning marriage. And there are reasons why that is. And but that's it. And with that being said, I will share this with you, and I'm giving some of my personal information. But based on that information, I am married on 11 occasions. I have 11 wives, according to that first part criteria. And at the same time, all of those marriages to this day have yet to satisfy the requirements of the second part. So that's just the actuality. But that factors into my spiritual path because actually, yeah, I'll say this, and then I'm going to pause because I've been talking around, and I want to hear what your thoughts are about what I've just said. But one other thing, again, about my personal experience, I'll share another story. law school. I was getting ready to graduate. I had my after being failed and having a bonus semester, I began a relationship with a young sister, and it becomes increasingly involved. And I'm facing the prospect of life at that moment, preparing for that. And I was actually getting ready to go the corporate route and settle down and be just like, okay, this is what it is. But couldn't do it. I wasn't able to do that because I could just, to be honest, I thought about like the prospect of her and I having children, and then I could just see my children looking at me and just like saying, "What do you do?" and what's your path? And I couldn't say like this is what I did. So I knew I wasn't going to do the corporate route, and so that was one thing. But still with her and still continuing. But continuing on at that moment, this is 20 years ago. It was the 11th of September just happened, and the country was like in paranoia. And I'm doing this kumbaya thing, and I'm about like peace with everybody. I love everybody, and at that point, Katz wasn't trying to hear it. Katz is still not trying to hear it too tough, to be honest. But particularly at that point, it was the wagons that were being circled, and it was a very binary thing. You're either with us or you're against us. And I'm like, yo, I'm not against Islam. I'm not against anybody. I love everybody, and I don't agree with everybody, but I'm not about to go to war, or I'm not about to sign up for anything. Da 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 da. And I was in a very I was in the echelons of like the American elite in terms of the legal community in the Washington D.C. area, and I knew like for me to make that kind of stance, I was about to catch hell. I knew I was about to get it. I knew I was about to get it. I was already on. My spirit. I had spiritual experiences when the brother JB was talking about having God talking with him. I was having those conversations at that time, and they were shaping my decisions. And the hierarchy within American society isn't very amenable to that kind of conversation spiritually and initially, because it undergirds like the hierarchies of convention. And so I knew like I was too deep in the game for me to make that decision. I was about to get it. I knew it. Just because anyway, so long story short, I separated with my girlfriend at that point because like I didn't want to avail her to what I was about to experience. I knew what I was about to experience. And I couldn't explain all of it to her as either. And so we went in our different directions. And so that's what it is. And but I'm sharing that based upon what you were talking about in your other conversation, X, about your experience with your girlfriend in Texas, what JB was talking about with his girlfriend as well, and how our relationship with women and our spiritual path are confluenced and inform and influence and support each other, and the challenges that are in there as well, and trying to decipher that. So I'm gonna pause there and just to see what your thoughts are, if there's anything in particular that you want to say in response to that.
Well, for me, I want to say, well, one, obviously, I'm very ignorant to marriage because obviously never been married. So, but a lot of this is really making sense to me, is what I can say.
Okay.
Because like the one thing I know about marriage is compromise. That's like the one thing I know.
Yeah.
You know, we gotta make certain like sacrifices for each other and all that. But I'm just along for the ride, and I'm learning. So that's all I gotta say.
So
Beautiful.
during your journey, did you even think about explaining it, or did you just say, "Hey, this is not worth explaining out. Just it is what
Nah,
it is."
to be honest, I didn't have the literacy to explain it. I'll say it like this, like I was talking to angels at that point, and it was scary because I knew, yo, you start saying that, Kaz is gonna call you crazy, and I knew that. And again, like when you know, because you know the environment of the elite, very secular, very of the world, and I mean, peace and blessings to all kinfolk, but that's just the nature of it. And within the United States, it's very a-religious. It's not very like, it's not like antagonistic necessarily, but it's just like it's very suspicious, very leery. It's been abused by religious authorities through the centuries. This is why the United States, a significant reason why it's established. So there's just in the elite spheres, like there's not just that culture of just speaking openly about religious experiences. And so I know that. And so if I talk, and I did talk with some kinfolk, but even then I was very selective, very careful. I did poetry and I tried to like express those. But I was on the streets. I would be like, I would walk the streets where I stayed in the Adams Morgan area, like midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I would talk with kinfolk. I'm like, yo, this is trippy. I'm not smoking. I was smoking weed, to be honest, as well. Some people might say, oh, it's just a hallucinatory. No, it was opening me up to that experience. And I was like, there were just so many conversations. There's one point I met Harriet Tubman, and that might sound crazy and everything, but that's legit. Like I met Harriet Tubman in the underground, in the metro, and I wrote a narrative about that. So I was having these experiences that I couldn't process myself, and I couldn't talk with people to try to help me process that because like I knew what the immediate reaction would be. Actually, I got baptized in that experience. I went to, because again, like that first experience I had when at the chapel that I mentioned, I didn't start going to church after that. I just like, okay, I had a conversation with God. Actually, I did start attending services here and there when I was younger, but I didn't join up at church. I didn't become a member of a church community or anything. I've just had that kind of relationship and continue that. And things never got hectic to the point of me feeling like the urgency of having that communication until I got to law school again. So then literally like again, my that year in law school, I was just feeling hectic. I was trying to find a quiet place to like pray. I was walking through the streets again of DC looking for a house of prayer or of worship to like open the doors, and they were all locked. How about that? And now that's a very interesting signal right there. All the churches locked, not available to somebody to just walk in and pray. That was very important. Now there was one door that when I was going to the churches, I was stopping one by one and walking the streets like at midnight or not, maybe 10 or 11 p.m. late. And it was dark, and I'm going from church to church, just opening doors, trying to get into the pew, trying to go to a religious sanctuary where can I have that conversation with God again. And the only church that was kind of available was I walked up to. There was a brother inside the door standing there. And I was like, yo, I just want to go in and pray. He was like, well, we have a prayer session later on. Come back then. So I kind of came back then. I sat in the pews, and there was like, it was a Baptist church, and they were in the pews, and they were just kind of like doing some old like spiritual kind of humming. They're just like, I felt like that spirit in there. And at some point I was bawling. I started crying. And having this thing, and so they were welcoming me, they're supportive. So yeah, I started attending services, and I got baptized. But even then, and there was like a challenging experience with that as well, because like I wanted to study and learn, and I got a call one day like, "Yo, Peter, we want you to get baptized tonight." I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, you ready?" I'm like, "Well, hold up, I was supposed to study." So, but I wanted to like honor the support and the generosity that the community had shown to me, so I did that. But I was just like hesitant or whatever else, because I just didn't know everything. So. But I mean, I just say that because that's where my head was at that moment. I was just very nascent to like this spiritual literacy. So when I was trying to, and I wasn't saying any of this to my girlfriend at that point. We were talking about life and all these other things about the international. We were vibing on that mind level of like the international culture and everything else like that. She was from another country. And so we were just vibing on that. I knew her from class, one of the classes I had. And so we were just like in tune in terms of our politics and social justice and all these other things. But in terms of spirituality, like she grew up Catholic, but she was agnostic, and so she wasn't comfortable having that type of conversation. And so I was just like, well, if I tell her all this, like she's just gonna be like, yo, she's gonna take that initiative. So I didn't say any of that. And so when I recognized like where things were taking me at that point, I was just like, yo, there was no beef, no animosity between her and I. Was just like, yo, I'm about to go into some, like, this road is about to get rocky, and I don't want you to have this because I don't even know what's going to happen to me. So that was kind of like the conversation, and she was upset, to be honest. And
yeah, I was just about to ask, was there any understanding for that?
She understood, like there wasn't a hate, like with the relationship that I had with all the wives that I have. And to be honest, what I call wives, many people would just be like, yo, that was a girlfriend, this and the other. But when I've gone to the spiritual path, I recognize, like, I have to recognize that the relationship that I have with each of the women, it qualifies for that first status. And it also speaks about how much I've denigrated the institution of marriage and where I am at this moment. So it's not just a matter of like saying I messed up and let me have a clean break because I know better now. But no, I've got a bad track record when it comes to being a husband and additionally. And so when I say I have 11 wives, people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. So, but anyway, so in each of the relationships, it was all like we each continue in our respective ways and copacetic. Like there was no beefs or anything else like that. So when I had that communication with her, oh yeah, oh my, I gotta be mindful. I'm supposed to be doing something now. So I gotta be mindful of that. When I had the conversation with her, um like she was upset, and she was like she wasn't like pleading like oh da 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 da, but she was just like earnestly like yo, I don't understand da 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 da. I'm like seriously, and I didn't say it's like it's not you, it's me thing. It's like yo, it's I think I said like it's about to get nasty right now, and I don't, but and that's all I could say. And so to be honest, I'll share with you this. I mean, I don't even tell my family about this. So here it is on the interweb joint. But like the most recent occasion I see her in life was over 20 years ago. And I remember I was graduating, she was graduating. I was graduating mid year, like I had a February graduation just because all I needed was a semester, and she too was graduating at the same point. And her mother was there, and her mother came to visit her, right? Um, and so like, and this was after I had already had the conversation with her. We were continuing to like see each other, and additionally, but like like it wasn't like an official status. And so and I was well, I'm not going to be too much information on this, but I was actually also striving to know how to treat a woman, because up to that point, like I was having inappropriate interactions with women, and additionally thinking I'm a nice guy because I'm not lying or cheating or doing anything else like that. And so in my mind, I still didn't know how to treat a woman properly. And so I was still learning that at that moment. So there's just so much. And again, I'm like 26, 27 years old at that point. So yo, kinfolk have like 3 kids by that point. And so I was old and learned in many ways, but at the same time, particularly when it comes to relationships, still very novice. And the most recent case, like I said, I was getting something from my father. I was up at a Union Station, and I just see her, and she's there with her mother, and she introduces me to her mother, and it was like it was like an effort of like continuing to communicate. And I meet her mother, and we have a nice conversation, and then we continue on our own ways. And that was the most recent occasion I see her 20 years ago. I've tried to connect it well, and I've reached back to all the women that I have a relationship with, and I made apologies when upon recognizing like the things that I've done that were improper. And there's been communications of forgiveness. There've been some challenging conversations and questions. Like one time a sister asked me like, does anybody love you? I was just like, that's like the harshest question I ever got in life. And not because it's nasty, but just because she was genuine. She was like, yo, does anybody love you? And I got defensive, obviously, but like, of course, da, da, da. But I was just like, the fact is, yo, it hit home and it hurt because there's like legitimacy. Like she wasn't trying to dig me. She was like actually communicating, because they're like, why? Who talks like this? Who shares this information? Who calls after 6 years and makes an apology like this? Like, are you okay? So, anyways, I've made my best to make amends, and to reach back and communicate, and additionally in all these relationships. But anyways, that's just some of the joints that I've learned some things about what I've learned the answers. I shouldn't say the answers, but I learned much of the answers about a man being stable within himself. When I think Corey, you're talking about like learning, and so having all time. What I recognize is it's us being stable as men within our own selves, secure, regardless of what our money situation is or whatever else, but secure in our walk in this life, having understanding of our relationship with the greatest power, and then also our sense of purpose of what we're in this life to do, and having some knowledge about how to do that with the skills and talents and gifts that we're provided. And that's for us as men, respectively, to have that and answer that for ourselves and continually, because this is a continual kind of learning process. But that's necessary in order for us to offer ourselves to be in a healthy relationship with a woman accordingly, and not to like to rely on her to be a second mother, or to compensate and be ego stroking or a trophy or anything other else. We're offering ourselves in righteous partnership with what she has and what she provides, and that she has some sense of self for herself, some knowledge about her relationship with the greatest power, some sense of knowledge about her purpose in this life, and how it fits in partnership with ours, respectively. So that's for a man to have an understanding of. And again, regardless of what like how old a man is, how much money he has, or whatever else, that's like spiritual stability. And as Jesus says, like the material sorts itself out. And that's not I'm not pish poshing that, but so many people so much emphasize like, well, you got to have your 501(c)(3) or not 501(c). I'm thinking about numbers now. A 401(c)(3) or what is it? The retirement fund, whatever. right? Yeah. 401k. Thank you very much. See, that's how long it's been, Corey. I'm an economics major, and that's how long it's been. 501c3, that's legal. 404, oh, da, da, da. Anyways, you got to have this, that, and the other. And what's your retirement schedule? And yeah, those are relevant, but at the same time, that's not the priority. The priority is like having that stability, because to be honest, like the pensions can come and go, to be honest. All the materiality, regardless of how rock solid the bank is or whatever else, systems, da da da, things can happen because, well, anyways, without getting into the whole tangent, I'm going to avoid that one, Corey. Without getting into that tangent, the priority thing is having that eternal stability within ourselves. And then like we do have to provide, like traditionally, like a man it provides for his family. Additionally, now we know things are increasingly partnership these days, but still, and we can talk about like a woman working in addition, because like I actually had the conversation recently with an auntie. She asked me about that, and I was like, yo, you know what? A wife working for having a job or whatever, it's not necessarily the bad thing, but here's the thing to recognize: like when a woman is working for another man, she's abiding by another man's authority, another man's voice, and that intrinsically is going to have some type of undermining in the relationship between the man and woman, and that's just actuality. And it's not a matter of being jealous. It's not a matter of like whatever else. It is something that compromises the integrity of the relationship between the man and the woman. It's not necessarily absolutely prohibitive or whatever, but it's just a matter of recognizing the cause and effect. And so materiality is necessary. A man has to answer for that, and be dutiful in providing for that. But there's some preliminary foundational levels to secure, but before getting into those details.
Peter,
Yeah.
are you good? Or can we talk? Can we talk about Randall? Or you gotta
Yeah,
go?
let me do that. Because I'm supposed to getting a call. I got a call. By God, I gotta go.
Okay.
So I will say this. Come on, my boss, Randall Robinson, and this is kind of where things bring together. I'm going to avoid doing this. I should. I'm late, and I got info calling me, so I should like say, oh, I'm about to be a minute, but I don't want to get into the whole kind of repertoire on the social media doing it. So I'm going to stick to this, focus on this, and then conclude this up, and then go to the next one. God willing. So Randall Robinson, of blessed memory and peace. We had a conversation about school days, and we were talking about what I didn't see DAP in actual life, and when I was getting ready to go to law school, I was working for Amnesty International in DC area. I saw a Charlie Rose show that featured Randall Robinson, who started Trans Africa Forum. Long story short about Randall Robinson, he grows up in the South, goes to Virginia Union Black School, HBCU, has some experience in the military, then goes on to law school, Harvard University. He graduates from Harvard, works for a year or so, and then starts a lobby group supporting Pan-Africanism, unheard of in the 70s. Like pioneering. I don't want to like that word pioneering, but anyways, he's like he's like next level type stuff in the 70s. He starts a lobby group called Trans Africa Forum. He visits Africa. He meets with dignitaries. He has some standing. He has some connections or whatever to be able to meet with kinfolk who are in the leadership in Africans in African governments. And so he started his lobbying group to lobby for the interests of African countries. And so by that point, there was a lot of decolonization, but still there was high apartheid in South Africa. And so that's what he focuses on in the 70s. So through the 80s, that's what he was doing. He was getting it on the map on terms of politics and additionally. And so he is the actual life DAP. And I'm sure that Spike Lee is aware of who Randall Robinson is during that period. I'm sure many people today don't know a lot about Randall Robinson, but he's the actual life DAP. And I'm very confident that Spike Lee knows who he is because, like, Randall Robinson knew the who's who in the Black elite in this society, and they supported his cause. So he was doing hunger strikes for South Africa and Haiti. One of the issues, but anyways, obviously, apartheid is dismantled in South Africa, in large part due to the efforts of Randall Robinson and his influence in putting that on the map. I shared with you the link of his speech at the Cleveland City Club, and that was, I think, like 82, 83, something like that. So that was 40 years ago when nobody was talking about that too tough. He was like giving those speeches and holding it down. So Then when South Africa changes, and then maybe as well, because he focuses on that, then he focuses on the Caribbean. Haiti at that moment, it was a hot spot, and so he does some work there. He wrote a book called Defending the Spirit, which is basically an autobiography, and I read that. And then seeing all of this, I find out about it in 1990, 1997, 98, thereabouts. So I kept that in mind, and when I was in law school, first year, I wasn't going to class. I'm like, yo, I might be able to be doing something. So I started interning with Trans Africa Forum. Just showed up, be like, yo, I'm in the law school. Can you use me? And they're like, yo. So I started working on a few projects, one of which included preparation for a trip to Cuba, delegation going to Cuba, and so that was some of the work that I did. But meanwhile, I'm learning. I'm going to the I'm talking with the staff. I'm going to the reading room and just like connecting whatever. And so by the point I graduated from law school that same year, I was going through everything else like that. He retired. Randall Robinson retired. I had another book out, but he was like passing on the reins of Trans Africa Forum. He had a retirement thing, and then when I was the retirement thing, again, like I said, it's like who's who of the Black elite. I'm like, yo, there's that. Yo. So, anyways, but just the influence that he has of doing that, and like I said, like he was the DAP, and he is the DAP, and he progresses the bar. He takes it to another level, and he provides a foundation for kinfolk like myself to continue the legacy, because I'm encouraged. I was already on the international traveling already, but it's because of his influence and the work that he does preliminary, that there is a study abroad program in South Africa, Howard University, and additionally that I'm able to attend and participate. And then I have my spiritual experience in going to South Africa, and that informs me significantly in my path and what I do. And so he contributes a lot in a low key, subtle way, and there's much appreciation for that. So actually, since I graduated from law school, there are 4 novels that I've read in life for the past 20 years. One is written by my friend, my roommate in law school. Another is written by a mixed sister who is a colleague. The other is Paulo Coelho, the Portuguese writer who writes The Alchemist. And then this is the 4th one. I just got this one, seeing that Randall Robinson just made this. So this is actually interesting. I just started this one, but I don't read novels, as to say, too tough. But I got this one because Randall writes it. So anyways, I invite kinfolk to look at what he does. And to be honest, I don't agree with everything. Like he's a lawyer. He took the bar. I don't do that. So, but he's from another era and another time. He actually goes into self-exile and lives with his second wife in the Caribbean island, because he gets fed up, just like W.E.B. Du Bois does with U.S. society. So, and that does resonate with me, but I didn't have that availability because I got deported back. So, but there are things that obviously there's agreements and disagreements with everybody, and so, but at the same time, there's tremendous appreciation and respect for the work that he provides, the work that he shares, the dedication that he provides, that benefits so many people in this life, and that still has yet to be like recognized, that still has yet to come to fruition, because it's some of them deep seeds that take a while to come to the surface. So, but there's appreciation for the life that he shares on this earth, and peace and blessings go to his family, of comfort and support, and that's what I have to share. Oh, so I'll share this one other thing, one other brief story, and I told you, X, when I made that joke about Shaker Heights that I'm gonna pay for it. I'm gonna pay for this again. I'm gonna pay for this, and I did pay for it too. I'm still paying for that joke, but now I'm paying for my delay right now, because y'all, I'm bad right now. So anyways, that being said, here's a brief story. When I was in undergrad at Hampton, and during the fraternity, one of the things that fraternity did was we had what we call guide right. And what guide right is we would go to the local Boys and Girls Club and we would volunteer, and every member of our chapter was required to do that at least once a week. I would go every day, because that's where I found meaning. That's where I found like some genuineness. That's where I found like cats appreciating what I share. Children are honest. They when a young kid, a young brother comes through, children are just like, yeah, come on. So I would go there on a daily basis, and I would help tutor, and just after school program, whatever. So to the point that I got asked to be one of the basketball coaches. And now that's honor right there. They had like a tournament or whatever. They would play other teams from other boys and girls clubs and other teams from their own club and everything. Yo, come on, what? Of course, yo, come on, 5-on-5, yeah, let's go. So I was a coach, and that's like my first time being a coach. And I'm just saying this because I know you guys got this experience right now. And I love that experience. It's one thing, like I'm a nice guy and everything, congenial, like, oh, you can have this. I'm laid back. To be honest, when I got into the basketball court, when I got into any competition, yo, yeah, let's go. And I'm a different dude, yo. And I gotta be scared because I gotta be mindful of that. So that's my mindset. Like we're in this, yo, let's play, let's go. What's up? What's happening? Let's get it. It's no anger or whatever. It's just like, yo, this is it. Like let's do it. Like I want to be the best that I can be in this joint. Like let's flex. So that's what it is. And when I play against cats who's nice, yo, beautiful. Come on, because that's the way we get better. So and it's always it's co-opetition. It's like it's competition in a cooperative structure. So I love doing that. And I do it less these days because you know, I got these gray hairs and everything, but I still got this. So anyways, that my time at the Boys and Girls Club, first time being a coach, completely different experience, yo. I'm not on the court. I can't take the reins and bring the team, whatever else, whatever, yo, but I can help guide. And I can like, and the trippy thing was this, like my somehow like my team was just like very unusual because I had the most popular kid at the club who had skills. Yo, he was small, but he had skills, yo. He was the most off the court, he was the most popular kid in the club. And then I had the most awkward, like outcast girl. Everybody dogged her, everything, da da da. And she was like, she was like rebellious because she's like, I don't care what you think, da 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 da. But she at the same time she was like kind of hurt and everything else like that. So she was just awkward. So I had like the two extremes on my squad, and she had skills too, yo. I think she might have had a jumper. She was fearless or whatever. But I had those two on my squad, and then like the rest of the kinfolk were kind of just like ordinary kinfolk with no disrespect. But I just remember like playing the games and like encouraging the kids and giving some pointers and everything and seeing it happen. And then like, well, it's one thing when we do it, but then when we share it and then we see somebody else like doing what we share, it's like, yo, that's awesome. And we was handling our own. But I just remember that experience of being a coach and everything else like that. So to bring it full circle with this whole thing, that's where I see myself at the moment is like in that coach thing. And it's not just because of the gray hairs. We can be a coach at 20 years old, coaching 60-year-olds. We were talking about Khalid the other day, Brother Corey, and just like that leadership. I mean, that's another form of coaching. And so I appreciate what you do with what's out. I appreciate what you do with the rolling and having that experience and sharing that experience, even the things that you don't say. But even just when you show yourselves out in the water, when you talk about, yo, we had a crew, we did okay this past week. Cass was listening, and we started like showing the results of that. It's applying that to this endeavor of life and like this experience of village and coaching in a and our bosses like Randall Robinson, and additionally like Katz who was on the echelons showing us how to lead a crew, a lobby group. He just brought crew together. Katz came out the woodwork like, yeah, we like the cause, we want to sign up, and like, yo, let's roll. We got the team together, let's do it. And it don't take a lot of numbers. It's the quality, yo. It's the cause and it's the quality, and the numbers, the quantity sorts itself out along that process. And so that's what I share is like the going forth on this joint is we're on this team, we're in this village experience together. We each have our skill sets, we each have our way of coaching and bringing that to the table. It involves what we do in our business occupational, but it also involves what we do at the home front in our relationships at home, and it has to do with where we are centered with the eternal as well. Menke, Confucius, and additionally talk about like the royal leader, like the leader with the royal sway, doesn't tell his subjects and doesn't tell the whole country to live a certain way. He lives it himself, and then it permeates through the people, his leaders around him. It permeates through the leaders within society. In addition, so we got to have our home front significantly secured. And I'm ignoring my home front right now as I say this. So, yo, I can't take that too much for granted. So, with that said, yo, let's get back into it, yeah, and let's keep rolling. Let's keep communication. Regularity helps to provide some trust and understanding and patience when we trip up a wee bit. Regularity and communication, regularity and seeing each other. And so, yo, there it is.
Peter, thank you. Coach Peter. Let me put it to you like that, Coach Peter.
Indeed, brother.
Thank you
Coach
very
X.
much. Thank you for your
Yeah.
time. I know you got it. I know you got something. We really appreciate you, like always.
Yeah.
Once again, if you need to hit up,
Likewise, all things
if
for
you want to
praise.
hit us up or hit Peter up, let us know. Comment, and we'll get you set up, man. Peter, if you want to write something on the comment for this one, so people can find your YouTube, so everyone can know, so we could grow this community, have conversations. We'll do the next one. We want to try to do is live, and we want to see who's gonna come in, who got questions. We can have a big discussion. So, Peter, thank you very much. Corey, as always, thank you, brother. And this has been What's Out, y'all. Peace out.